Coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for another episode of Tech Talk with your host, Joey Klein.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tech Talk. So we've got a special show today. Normally, everyone who listens to this knows we have about 2 or 3 guests. We have a large topic to discuss today, and so we are limiting it to one guest, and it is Allie Young, CEO and founder of Access Replay. How you doing, Allie?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we are going to talk about gaming, which is a broad category, and I'm going to make some assumptions here. Our audience generally is probably in your 30s to, low 40s, okay, in terms of age, right? And part of this is somewhat biographical, but I think that my experience can somewhat serve as maybe an analog for many of those listening to this. If your last gaming experience was maybe your first computer, you got to play Doom, or, in high school you played Goldfinger or Mario Kart on N64. And maybe since then you played a little bit in college at, with some buddies, but you haven't really picked up a controller in, call it a good 10 years. What do those listening, I would say probably at least 50% of this audience, not understand about the revolution that gaming is going through right now?
I mean, really, when you look at the average age of gamers today, they are that 33 is the average age, surprisingly enough. I ask that question a lot, actually, when, during panels, and everybody always tells me, 13 or 14. Right. But you're right. A lot of gamers today are, those of us who used to play in high school, or college, and then, real life kind of took away a little bit of game time. And now it's just recreation, right? In the industry right now, there's a lot of buzz around esports. Mm-hmm. And what people need to understand is that esports is really a small portion of gaming. 60% of the U.S. population, and I think it's actually gone up. It's 66% now, of the U.S. population plays video games. And so that is, that's a large sector.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit and just give a highlight of what Access Replay does. I want to get into your background, why you love gaming, dig much more into why esports has become a phenomenon, even though, yes, as you said, that is a small piece of gaming overall. Mm-hmm. But give us the headline in Access Replay.
So Access Replay is really kind of a top golf experience for video games and esports. My background is in sales and marketing. I worked with corporations, Cox Media, Clear Channel, own my own marketing firm. And actually, I'm a gamer. I met my husband playing video games 20 years ago, and this has always been a passion of mine. And so when we conceptualized the idea of a top golf type environment for gaming and esports, or video games, I started doing I started doing a deep dive in the marketplace for what that looked like. Where were the gaps? And we found a huge one, right? One of the big gaps is missing infrastructure for a space or a venue, where gamers can come together. And with gaming being such a social activity, mm-hmm. This is something that is extremely important to us as a gamer, but also as a human being, right? I mean, we're constantly looking for, those experiences. It's in our DNA to come together as a group. I mean, when you look at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and good Lord, the poor Falcons, right? But, people still pay tickets and they go to the game. And that is, instead of watching it by yourself, watching TV. That is a question that people always ask me, when we conceptualized the idea and started, looking for investment dollars. The question was, why, hey, Allie, why would anybody, leave their house to play video games? And my answer was always, well, because we're human.
We talked about that when we first met, and I'm somewhat, look, I understand that maybe being a question from a savvy investor trying to understand, okay, how do you monetize this? But if you take that question at face value, I don't really understand how a thinking, feeling human being can necessarily ask that, right? We all like experiences, okay? And I do want to talk about experiential retail, of course, as a real estate guy. That is of interest, and that is exactly what we're talking about here. But, to be human is to want to interact with other human beings and share experiences. I'm sure you're familiar with the trend that a lot of bands, tour now, and they're doing anniversary tours of albums that came out 15 or 20 years ago, right? Where they play the album all the way through. I went to one of these last night, okay?
That's awesome.
And it was great. And of course, you know exactly what song is going to come next.
Mm-hmm.
And someone asked, well, like, you know what's gonna, I mean, what's the fun here? I was like, you don't understand. Like, it's a different experience to listen to it in my car than to scream it along with everyone else who knows it too and remembers what it was like when they heard that for the first time when they were 14.
Yeah.
I'm so confused at people that don't get, whether it's gaming or whether it's anything social. Yes, you can stay in your house to do it, but, our biology, our makeup is still the same as it was thousands of years ago. We still want to get out and interact with people.
Absolutely. Actually, when you said that, I got chills because, the relaunch of the 15-year-old game World of Warcraft. They did a WoW Classic relaunch basically. And we had an event for it. Just, hey, let's just put together an event. And we were open all night. Yeah. And so it was a Monday night. And we were open until, it was basically a lock-in. So we were open until 8 a.m., which is,
oh, that's really cool.
And I have to tell you, I mean, we were packed. I mean, packed full. People came in, guilds, groups of people actually came together at Access Replay to play World of Warcraft, a 15-year-old video game.
Yeah.
That, they reverted back from all of the updates and everything that they've had over the past 15 years. They reverted back to WoW Classic, which was the game when it came out 15 years ago. And I'm telling you, people were there until 3 or 4 in the morning on a Monday night.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's fantastic. Well, I really want to talk about the community aspect of it because it's not like going somewhere to game is necessarily a new concept, right? We've had arcades. You can go to a place like a Dave & Buster's, right? And, play games, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's something very different going on with Axis in a very short period of time. And I think a lot of that has to do with the community that you're building. And I'd like to dig a little bit more into that.
So we are all about experiences for gamers and their friends. And what we found, we've been open since January, and we found that, each gaming community, like I said, 60% of the US population plays video games. Mm-hmm. So, when people ask what games you play, there could be 100 different answers, right. Just like when somebody says, hey, what kind of music do you like? Right? It's such a huge swath of demographics.
Right.
So for the communities that we serve, each one really has its own unique, passion. Right? I mean, you have the fighting game community, which in Atlanta is a huge deal, made up of some older players who are, into Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and Tekken, right? And those are fairly old games, and Dragon Ball Z, and that group requires a different experience. Mm-hmm. Than, say, the Fortnite the Fortnite guys, right? Or girls. And then there are also, the high schools who are getting into esports now, and that's a totally different sector. Because they're playing, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but but Georgia just declared last year esports as a sport.
I've seen.
Which is amazing. And so there are 3 games that the schools play. Mm-hmm. So they're competitive with it and, that type of stuff, and they require a different experience. So the communities that we're building are based around these pockets. And then you have Dungeons and Dragons players, right? I mean, we have a huge Warhammer tabletop event. People are flying in from all over, for this 3-day, tabletop event. So each one is about different communities.
Well, this actually brings up an interesting business issue, because you've launched in January, right? You're very much a startup.
Yeah.
And so you've got, as you mentioned, a wide swath of demographics
right.
that you're catering toward here. Okay. But you are a startup organization with limited resources and bandwidth. So how do you cater to this population and get everyone who should be interested in access, while also keeping your eye on a goal and not, spreading yourself too thin?
Yeah, so that's a challenge, for sure. I mean, like I said, my background is in sales and marketing, so thank God for that. That's one. And there are companies who have tried over the past 5 years, to create something like an Access Replay, mm-hmm. and they've failed. And I think it's because they're not open to the fact that gamers require their own little communities, and they want to be social on their terms, and each one of those experiences have to be unique. Does that make sense? So, let me share this with you. For example, for us, we understand and accept and embrace that our communities are going to be vastly different. Mm-hmm. And we make sure that the experiences that we have at Access Replay are just as diverse. Yes, we have our target market and our target demographic, which, when you look at it, it's gamers, right? In the Atlanta market, and the DMA, and how do we engage those people? And we do that through these experiences. So it might be where, when you look at Braves fans, right? Or you look at football fans, you have to engage them in those terms. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think what seems in addition unique to what you're doing is, okay, so I mentioned traditional arcades or Dave & Buster's, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. To me, those are somewhat reactionary. And what I mean by that is that, you're the one choosing to go there. You think about, let's go to whatever, Dave & Buster's is the example I'm using, okay? As opposed to what you're doing, which is, yes, of course, you want people to, actively choose to come to you, via a membership, okay? But you're also holding these events. You're also putting these communities together, whereas you are going to the community, giving them a reason to come to you. And I think when you look at the larger category of, I put mixed-use real estate developments, I put experiential retail in here. When you look at the ones that are successful, they're not just standing on their own. There is an active programming group behind, whether it's a development or whether, it's Monday Night Brewery. I just learned this. Monday Night Brewery, the new one on the Southwest Beltline, 200 events a year. right? It's not because they can't just, there's a ton of brewery competition, right? You can't just serve beer. You have to provide a reason for people to join that community and come out. And so what sounds to me unique about what you're doing is you are curating that as opposed to just letting this facility stand there and say, hey guys, we have games. Why don't you just come play?
That's well said. We really focus on, when we opened, one of our very first strategic partners was DreamHack.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to a DreamHack, I don't know if you got a chance to go in this November.
No, we talked about it. I wasn't able to make it. I really wanted to.
Well, it's the largest gaming festival, essentially, in the world. And DreamHack is all about the lifestyle for gamers. So when you go there, they have, it's a big LAN party. People come in and bring their own computers and play video games, but you also get to try out new games. You have apparel. There's an expo you get to try out equipment and peripherals. And then at night they hold concerts, and where they have artists come in and the gamers get up and they watch these concerts. And, so really it's all about the gaming lifestyle. And we've really modeled Access Replay around that, right? Because as a gamer, it's not just about the games. It's about our life as a gamer, and being able to integrate that. And in fact, so Access Replay is a live, work, and game community. We offer and provide a hot desk and co-working space during the day, gaming at night. And half of our members are, in fact, our co-workers.
Interesting. Before we breeze past this, and well, we've gotten deep in conversation at this point, obviously, but where is Access Replay located?
So we are right on Krog Street, across from Krog Street Market in downtown Atlanta.
Okay, fantastic. So you are right on the Beltline.
Yes.
Atlanta's beachfront property. Perfect. So anyone who works in that area and they could or could not have an interest in gaming, but they want a place to co-work for the day, they can come to Access Replay and do that.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Okay. So I want to go back to esports. All right. Because people may have misconceptions about what esports is. If they've been paying attention, may have seen that there are now people playing esports at a very young age, winning lots of money to rival some of the largest prizes in more traditional athletic sports. So what is esports and why has it become such a force to be reckoned with?
Esports really is, it's a sport where it's a spectator sport for video games, right? Okay. And that's the simple answer for that. The reason I think that it's become such a force to be reckoned with, you have a lot of, fans of sports and traditional sports, right? I mean, I might be a Falcons fan, but I don't play football.
Yeah.
Right? With esports, and I don't know the exact percentage, of data, right, that has been done so far, but a good portion of esports fans play the game that these players play. So there's an added level of passion behind it.
Right.
And then also the engagement that you have with digital athletes is so much more than the typical. So, for example, we've had 26 pro teams practice out of Access Replay, and they use it as a practice facility because we have 10G internet lines. We have the fastest internet in the country right now in a retail space, which is amazing. And also we have top of the line gaming equipment there. And these teams, when they come in and practice, you could be a member at Access Replay and look next to you and you're sitting next to one of the top 5 Fortnite players in the world. right? You don't get that kind of level of engagement. I mean, you could be, that's like going to the gym, playing some hoops, and all of a sudden Michael Jordan is right next to you. And so that's obviously an example at Access Replay, but when you look at, or when you watch a stream on Twitch, and why so many viewers, are on that medium now, the level of engagement from these guys when you're watching somebody practice and play, and they're saying, "Oh, hey, hello, Joey, how are you?" You know, like when you log in and you say, "Hey, so and so," that's like watching Kobe play and being like, "Hey, Kobe," and he responds to you.
Right.
So that level of engagement ties in so much, there's so much strength in that. And, I think that's a big reason why esports has become so big so fast, because of the passion of the fans. I mean, at the end of the day, a sport is only as strong as its fan base.
Yes, absolutely, right. But what you've brought up is something interesting, because we haven't, whether you're a fan of music, of movies, of high art, of athletics, you don't really get a chance to interact with your idols, right? Like I couldn't, like this is like if I, posted, I'm a guitarist, right? If I posted something, on YouTube, and like Jimmy Page responded and he was like, "Nice lick, Joey." I'm like, that would never happen, right?
Maybe.
I'd be able to die happy if it did, right? But the fact that, and I think there's a lot of reasons why gaming lends itself to a little bit more of a cohesive, non-hierarchical type of community. But the fact that that's even possible means that that community can be built, I think, quicker and probably stronger. And of course, this is something that would not have even been possible, I think, even 10 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, 10 years ago, there were barely comms, right? Or communications or devices or apps that you could use when you're playing a game with your friends even, right? I mean, it's technology's come a long way for sure. Okay,
so you as a businesswoman have, you're a gamer by heart. You've identified all these business reasons why at this point in time it makes sense for you to establish something like Access. Talk to us about, because I like to get in the psychology of an entrepreneur, okay? So talk to us about the journey from quitting. I mean, obviously you're still in sales and marketing, right? We're all in sales and marketing.
Absolutely.
But quitting sales and marketing in a more formal way and venturing off to start Access.
So that's a great question, because, on the operational side, obviously Access Replay takes a lot more of my bandwidth than a marketing firm did. When you have a facility and a venue, the operations behind it has to be extremely strong, and solid. And I have to tell you, the team that I have now, I mean, I went from a team of 5 with my marketing firm to now, Access Replay has a team of 18. And that's just one location.
Yeah.
In terms of that journey from sales and marketing, I have not actually gone away from that.
Of course.
Very much, which is really actually interesting. It's more of, I would say it's more expanded. Because now, we did a lot of experiential stuff through my marketing firm. However, what we're doing at Access Replay is like times 100. And so that piece of it has been different, and expanded. Obviously, the day-to-day, the operations. I have a great team, so that's been their focus. I would say the biggest difference for me has been on the investor side. I bootstrapped my first company. It was not, I didn't need investments for it. And this part of it with getting investors has been different for me.
And from an investor perspective, you have partnered with Rise Ventures.
I have, and in fact, we are. I can't say it yet until everything is signed off. But we, what I can share is we have partnered with several angel investors in the Atlanta market who are some pretty big names. So Sig Mosley is one. He's an investor and he's also on our board. He's very big into tech and the godfather of investments in Atlanta. Sue Ribb, who is an incredible mentor. She is also the managing partner with Atlanta Music Fund and kind of brings in the entertainment sphere into our world. And then, of course, Champ Bailey, former pro Hall of Famer, Georgia native, he brings in that side of the world in terms of sports and traditional sports, which is amazing to see, because when you look at the diversity of even our investor pool, it really it matches. Number one, our customer base. It matches what we're doing in terms of diversity and also connecting traditional sports, entertainment, and esports and gaming together in kind of under one roof.
All right. Well, so it sounds like you reading between the lines, you have something exciting to announce, but we can't talk about it too much. So we'll have to have you back on to discuss. Speaking of traditional sports, I want to touch upon the corporate sponsorships, and corporate programs that you've been a part of. And, specifically, I'm thinking of work with the Braves, but of course I also know that, you do corporate work with, like corporate memberships, on organizations that have nothing to do with traditional sports. So touch upon both of those, because I think I found them definitely very interesting when we first talked about them.
Sure. So some of our biggest partners this year, has had things to do with esports and gaming. Obviously the Braves with the traditional sports side and tying in, what we did with the Braves was really interesting. We created an experience for the Braves, that brought their fans closer to their players, through the Atlanta Players Cup. And what the Atlanta Players Cup was that it was a fundraising event. And actually the way I pitched it was, hey, let's do a new kind of golf tournament, right? Yeah. One that the players want to do in the heat of Atlanta summer.
Right. With air conditioning.
With air conditioning. Yeah. So we had the Braves, Acuna, Albies, Fried, Luke Jackson actually owns a Fortnite team. Wow. And we had, RBK, which is, Luke Jackson's team, come in, after a game, Acuna, Albies, Fried and some other players, came in and played Fortnite to raise money for the Braves Foundation. And it was so much fun. So the greatest part about that event is, obviously it took there was a lot of red tape around, MLB distribution, et cetera, and partnership. But the partnership there, we only had 3 hours to promote this streaming event.
Okay.
There was only 3.5 hours of content, and we were able to have, we had 227,000 views.
Whoa.
It was insane. And this is the kind of power that, that gaming has, where it really, it humanizes, and the folks from the Braves team are like, yeah, it humanizes the players. It's no longer, I grew up in the Michael Jordan age, right? Where it's like, they're almost idols, and right. having this kind of engagement just strengthens that bond from fans and players. So that was one. We worked with AT&T this year with some, phenomenal activations, where we created an experience for, the gaming community, Madden community, and then also, Injustice 2 in the fighting game community. We had these tournaments, in conjunction in partnership with the Falcons where, we had some Falcons players, cheerleaders, and, AT&T curated this event. We had it at Access Replay. The players played, and the finalists from that actually got to play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on the Halo board. I mean, getting out on the field, like Falcons jerseys.
That's incredible.
Oh my gosh. It was like, I mean, these guys will never forget that experience for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And that is the authentic way to do those things, right? Like, I mean, when you create experiences like that, when you create fans like that of your brand, that's the kind of stuff that I love to do.
That there's nothing that builds sticky brand loyalty like something like
Yes.
that. Yeah. So, and this is, and look, sometimes I ask questions because I know the answers and I want the answers said out loud. This one I just popped into my head and I'm curious about. So, anyone who, tracks Georgia politics knows that, casino and sports betting have been a big topic of conversation. Some of the largest political donors over the past couple of years are casino organizations. And I'm curious, with sports betting being such a topic of conversation, is esports betting a thing? Is there like an underground esports betting organization? Is this something that people see as another revenue stream, or it's somewhat in its infancy and we haven't gotten there yet?
It's definitely coming.
Okay.
And I believe I just read something recently in New Jersey. But I do know that it's been in progress for many years, in terms of, I have a very close relationship with MGM in Vegas, and they, there's a lot of things going on there, with esports, as you know. And there are talks and there have been a lot of advocates in Atlantic City. For Georgia, I believe that, betting for sure is coming, right? I think they're building a casino, right? The first one that's going to be over at Atlanta Motor Speedway. I read something about that.
Well, so I think Atlanta Motor Speedway is first the General Assembly, I believe, has to amend the Georgia Constitution, which requires I forget if it's actually a vote like by us, or if it is simply a vote in the legislature. So I think Atlanta Motor Speedway is sort of pitching like, hey, look at us over here. We have this big piece of land. But, there's been activity from a number of legislators who I think are going to bring this up in the 2020 General Assembly session. Yeah.
So I know there are talks that have been going on for years and years. And I keep an eye on it. And these things kind of get pinged, to me. But I'm not 100% sure on where that is. But I do know that in terms of esports betting, that is coming.
One would think if there is a desire, to bet on traditional sports, why not esports?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all this is probably inevitable.
Absolutely. And I know that there are already platforms where people can kind of bet on themselves, where they can play against other people,
okay,
and for money.
Yeah.
And of course there's tournaments and things like that, and that's also for money. But it's not necessarily sports betting yet.
Right. Okay. Well, interesting topic to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
I want to touch on the gaming camp that you run, because I think that, so as I think it's fascinating for a number of reasons. One of the places where I come from is, I live in the city. I'm a parent. I think it is becoming I grew up here as well. I grew up in the suburbs, and you see a lot more people choosing to raise their kids in the heart of the city. You see the city proper population swell, right? What I don't think has caught up are a lot of family-friendly activities and venues. Yes, there are places I can take my daughter to swim, and, yes, there's parks, but, if you look at a lot of kind of the large indoor retail type spaces, bowling alleys, indoor gaming facilities, right? Minus access replay. Traditionally, these have been in big box shopping centers in the depths of the suburbs. And so I think that there is a lack of this in the city from a family perspective, not necessarily from a nightlife perspective. And so I'm always interested in activities for kids in the heart of the city. I also think that the concept is cool. So that's sort of where my interest is coming from here. But let's kind of give the audience a look into what this gaming camp is.
Sure. Well, first, as a parent also, I have a 13-year-old girl, who, by the way, is a gamer, and
of course she is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I make her practice playing 2 hours a day, as part of our curriculum. Seriously.
Well, mine is 2. There's a little ways to go there, but.
Well, one of the things, in terms of being family friendly, absolutely. I mean, when you look at gaming as a way to connect with your kids, it's a powerful way to do that, right? I mean, it's a time when when you guys can work together as a team. Mm-hmm. You can also, you have to communicate, and it brings parents in the mindset of their child.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't a lot of activities, period, that does that. I mean, I know as a parent, I struggle to do things. A lot of times we'll be watching a movie, or we'll watch something that not necessarily I might like, or she might not necessarily enjoy. And there's always that kind of, not necessarily conflict, but, it's that disparity between interests.
I get it. I cannot say that I like Daniel Tiger as much as my 2-year-old does.
Exactly. So as a family-friendly activity, gaming, I highly recommend it for all parents. I mean, just even, learn from your kid, right? How many opportunities does your child get to teach you something? And, I think that's a powerful connecting point. What we're doing with our summer camp program, and, this is really fun because what I've found was, in the past years, a lot of these summer camps that are in existence, they try to legitimize gaming through adding in things that they think parents would like their kids to do, mm-hmm. right? Like, for example, coding and game development. So when we were developing our summer camp program, we had a test week this year. I was adamant that we were not going to have any kind of gaming development or coding in our summer camp because, in reality, if you go to a football camp or a soccer camp, you're not going to learn field maintenance or how to stitch a ball.
Yeah.
That's just not the way that works. So my thought process was that if we're really going to legitimize it or make it acceptable to parents, let's show them how we can create and help create well-rounded gamers, right? Not well-rounded people, but well-rounded gamers. So our summer camp program, includes a partnership with Mamba Sports, out from LA and, Kobe Bryant's team. And actually for 2020, we're going to be partnering with Northside Hospital as well, to provide, they'll be the provider for the medical side, of the training and nutrition. So the summer camp program has health and wellness, and these groups are facilitating that for them. So we're talking cognitive skills training, mental acuity training, breathing exercises, and sleeping and nutrition and, well-rounded athletes, right? Because and it's amazing because I did the cognitive skills testing. By the way, I was not good. But when you're looking at your hand-eye coordination, it needs to be you need to have slept well. You can't be tired and exhausted. And sometimes playing too much is not a good thing, right? But activity and training includes the physical side. So that's one of the things that we do. Additionally, it's all about gaming. So we train and coach, on these kids playing a different game and every day. And it's not necessarily, they can't just come in and play Fortnite all week. Unless it's their game of choice, and then the advanced side, if they qualify for that, then they get to do that. So there's that. Then additionally, teams place a lot of importance in content creation. So we'll be doing production, streaming, workshops, and in social media and really content creation. And then obviously the competition side. So every day the kids compete during a tournament, learn what it's like to be up on stage, playing against each other. And then this year for 2020, we're actually including a combine where the kids can participate and be eligible for esports scholarships for college.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
Oh my God.
That is a thing.
Wow. That's amazing. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And so, initially we were planning on doing our summer camp program, in the 6 markets that we're going to be opening Access Replays in in the next 2 to 3 years. And we launched this project with a partnership with the Georgia High School Sports Association. And now we're offering the program to 13,000 kids in Georgia alone. So we'll have 5 locations in Georgia, for the kids to come and do esports and gaming summer camp.
And so if any parent listening to this wants to sign their child up, is there a deadline? How do they find more out about it?
So we will be pushing it out on our website at accessreplay.com. December 15th is when everything will be launched. The deadline will be when space runs out.
Sure.
And space is limited. So, we're looking at only having 80 spots for each of the locations that we're going to be in. Okay.
So parents, you hear that? If you want to get your kids an awesome gift, sign them up for video game summer camp.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So we touched upon that. That'll be hopefully a nice Christmas gift for a lot of kids out there. Obviously you have ambitions outside of Atlanta, but Atlanta is your flagship location. Why has Atlanta been such a great place to start and grow this business?
Atlanta is an amazing ecosystem. And they're constantly looking for ways to help entrepreneurs like myself. Not just that, but also, the resources in connections and I mean, my goodness, the way that Atlanta is completely all in when it comes to all things gaming and esports is phenomenal. Like, the support from High Res Studios and, the Scuff Gaming and Control Freak and, the manufacturers of gaming peripherals here, the Chamber of Commerce, Invest Atlanta, just to bring in even like the publicity support has been great. Not just, I mean, and I do want to make mention too, especially the Atlanta Esports Alliance, which, has recently formed, which is a part of the Atlanta Sports Council. And Sports Council is a world-class sports council that brings, the Olympics and the Super Bowl and, hopefully FIFA to Atlanta. Being integrated into that, as, for esports, just brings so much legitimacy to what we're doing. And I can't say enough about the ecosystem here. It's been incredibly supportive, and our successes is due largely in part to the fact that we are part of that ecosystem.
We have a lot of people from different industries on this show. Generally all touch technology to some degree, but, very different product types. And it really feels like this place is just in the past decade firing on all cylinders.
I agree.
It feels very different from, and look, certainly when I grew up here, I did not know it from a business perspective. But just, since 2010, 2011, there's just so much energy on all different fronts. It's I think we're having a moment. It feels like a very special time to be here.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So if people want to learn more about Access Replay, they can come visit you on the Beltline.
Absolutely.
And
anytime.
Then come check out your website.
Yes, please.
Okay. Can they find you on social?
Always. AccessReplay.com. That's AXIS Replay.
Any parting messages before we leave our listeners for today?
Game on, Atlanta. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Well said. Thanks, Allie.